Welcome everyone to our first talk of DA Hack 2021. This is Azine Davoudzadeh. She's going to be giving a talk on how to leverage XR technology for social good or to inspire social good. Azine, if you want to introduce yourself in your talk.
Yes, thank you, Jesse. Let me share my screen and I will begin. Okay, thumbs up. Can everyone see my screen okay? Awesome. Thanks for having me. My name is Azine Davoudzadeh. The talk today would be how to leverage XR technology to inspire social good. I am the founder of XR EDU and also a computer science teacher and new course teacher, XR for Social Good this year. And I wanted to thank Jesse for inviting me. He's one of my former students, so it's really great to see him here today. And I've done extensive research also in the area of VR and education. So I'm really happy to be able to share these little nuggets with everyone today and also learn more about this technology with you. So if you want to stay in touch, I'll also post this at the end, but you can check out our website, xredu.tech, or you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at xredu. So we'll go ahead and get started. The agenda for today is I'm going to talk a little bit about what is XR. I don't want to assume everybody knows already what it is. And then I'll talk about the research that I conducted in 2016 and what are the possible use cases for using XR. And then I'll dive into what problem-based learning is and how that can complement this technology. I am excited that I'll have a couple student presenters here today with me, so they'll be talking with you as well. And then time permitting, I have a little activity with web-based VR using A-Frame. Thumbs up if you've ever used A-Frame before. Okay, awesome. I see your hands there. Or you can even use the emojis. I do like a little bit of audience participation, so I am going to give something a try. First of all, I kind of want to know where is everybody coming from. So I created this world graphic. I'm going to go ahead and share that with you here. And if you can go to that link, I'll go ahead and drop it in the chat as well. If you go to that link, you can tell me where in the world you are. I don't want to assume everyone is in California. However, we probably are. So did everyone get the link? Okay. And if you don't mind, just go ahead and go. And I believe you should be able to drop a pin as to where in the world you are today. There we go. Okay, we have, I believe that's California. Another California. Awesome. And if you want to introduce yourselves to me, I would love to know who's in the room with us. So you're welcome to also just put your name and the exact location in the chat. And maybe you know, what your purpose for today is. Awesome. I see a lot of people were in the same location, so that's really good. Awesome. So I wanted to also talk about XR EDU, which is the nonprofit I founded. So I want to go ahead and talk about that. So what is it? Well, in 2016, when there was a resurgence of VR, I wanted to address the growing need for XR within education and its potential use cases. So I developed and founded XR EDU, and we wanted to research and design XR tools and its potential uses because we know that it's a really good learning tool for training purposes and also for relearning, a good space to make mistakes without real world consequences. So one way we did that to bring awareness was to create hackathons, much like this hackathon today. We definitely had an online hackathon in 2020. We've worked with big companies such as Microsoft and Unity are really good partners of ours, and we work with them a lot. And we made fun, engaging hackathons. And it was another way to connect developers, teachers, and students together to be able to develop actual products with XR that were useful and relevant, rather than developers who maybe don't know anything about education, or it's been a long time since they were students, or even from a teacher's perspective. So we created a lot of events, and that was one of our missions. And we also, lastly, wanted to increase the female interest in STEM, because there was such a disparity between males and females, and even people of color. So we wanted to just diversify this field and advocate for that. So yeah, so that was some of our missions of the XR EDU. And before I dive deep into XR, its potential uses, and my research, I would like to play a little game with you. I'm going to call it XR Games. It's pretty easy, so don't worry, nothing hard. So it's the same link I dropped earlier, polev.com/Azine Davoudzadeh and then 678. And go ahead and go there. And I believe it should, is it prompting you to play? Or should I go? I think maybe I have to go to the next one. Okay. So I just want to know if you know what VR stands for. Do you see the question now, Cassie? Okay, let's see here. Okay, you don't see it yet. Okay, let me try. How about now? Do you guys see it? Okay, awesome. Sorry. Tech little hiccupy. All right, here you can see it. What does VR stand for? Very real, vice representative, virtual reality, virtual real, or none of the above? What do you think? I think, are you allowed to choose an option here or no? Is it okay, awesome. Okay, so I think it gives you like 19 seconds. So we're gonna go ahead and advance the slide to see what happened with your responses. Okay, 100% said virtual reality and 0% said very real, which is good because that's not right. So yes, it does stand for virtual reality. Okay, let's see the next one. Looks like these folks were able to participate. So Felipe, you got it. Good job. All right, let's keep moving. I have more questions for you. What does AR stand for? All right, augmented reality, augmented rice, all real people, or none of the above? What do you think? Hopefully you're able to play. I don't know. Let's see, refresh. We'll give you 10 seconds. Okay, time is up. Let's see what your responses were. And let's see if I can advance. Okay, you guys are smart. Although I know I made the responses a little weird, but that was just for fun. So 100% augmented reality, that is correct. Now, augmented reality is where you, through a camera in your phone or any other device that has a camera, you're able to see computer generated images on, you know, whatever you would see with your camera. So that's augmented reality. And then last one, do the last question here. What does XR stand for? Elon Musk's child, extreme reality, extended reality, X Games, or Professor X? What do you think? Maybe we'll start the timer again. Okay, let's check it out. And Oh, okay. I think it's actually playing now. Okay, here we go. So we had a little bit of different opinions on this one. So 22% said extreme reality, 67% said extended reality, and I'm pretty sure those 11% knew that it's not Professor X, but thanks for keeping it real. So it is actually extended reality. And so I'm going to go ahead and go to the next question. So what are the benefits of using extended reality XR for social good? So last question, what are the benefits of using extended reality XR for social good? Now that includes virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed realities, which is sort of like a combination of VR and AR. So I don't know, that's why I'm here. It helps people see ghosts. It serves as a tool for empathy, presence, and can shift one's behavior, or it serves as a tool for playing only cool games. What do you think? I'll give you a little extra time, 9 more seconds. Okay, let's see. 10% said that it helps you see ghosts. Okay, very funny, everyone. 50% said, I don't know, that's why I'm here. So that's great. You're in the right place because that's exactly what we're going to talk about. 30% said it serves as a tool for empathy, presence, and can shift one's behavior. And I would say that is the correct answer. And I know that a lot of people do use this technology for playing cool games. However, hopefully after today's talk, we can inspire you to actually make games that also make a difference in your communities. So let's, without further ado, move forward. And here's our leaderboard. We have a winner, Ian, excuse me. Are you in the room? You are the winner. Good job. You get 1,000 points. All right, so now that you know, let's take a poll. Has anyone used any of the XR technologies? And let me go ahead and recap for you what exactly is XR. So here you can see in this graphic, we have AR on the left with the iPad. Remember, you can see things through the field with your camera, but then you can overlay computer-generated images. Then we have virtual reality, which basically you would be using a head-mounted device over your face, and it would block your view, but you would see it's total immersion, or the most immersion you can have in these products. And then there's 360 video, which you can scroll through on a phone or any device. And then mixed reality, I would say, is something like the HoloLens, if you've heard of that technology before, because you have an augmented reality glasses, but you can also manipulate things that are in your field of vision. So if you've used any of these technologies, drop it in the chat and I'll go through and look at those. If you've tried virtual, augmented, mixed realities, or any of those realities, I'd love to know that. So you can drop that in the chat while we continue. So a big question for today's talk is, how do you think XR could be used to solve global problems in teaching, learning, climate change, and etc.? So if you have any ideas about this, you can go ahead and drop those. Same link as before, pollev.com. And you can just drop your ideas in here. We'll give you a minute to drop those in. So in the chat, I see that Cassie says she worked on HoloLens. Oh, so cool. Awesome. And Felipe has tried everything but mixed reality, and Maxim tried VR back when it was the first Oculus. I know what you're talking about, Maxim. Those are the good old days. All right, so I see someone wrote in, it's anonymous, says labs can be taught online, maybe, definitely for enhanced training. Awesome, thanks for the feedback, everyone. It could be used to show the impacts of climate change. It could be used in teaching to stimulate more real classroom, what was that? Real classroom-like feel. That's awesome. Maybe for aiding workers in seeing virtual things to aid the real world, like measurements and stuff. Yes, absolutely. Can be used to gamify learning or have a simulated hands-on experience. I see it being helpful for teaching with virtual classrooms for people with less fortunate living school or living circumstances. Absolutely, yes. It can definitely be the great equalizer. Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone, for participating. So I'm going to go ahead and advance. So I want to talk to you now a little bit about my research in this field. So back in 2016, when this VR took a resurgence, I decided to research this topic with my middle school English classes. So first, I wanted to find an important problem that I could solve, which is really the crux of social good, is finding those problems that you're passionate about, and something that I was passionate about at the time. So the problem that I decided to work on was there is a disproportionate amount of males to females in technology and STEM fields. And I somehow had a feeling, because of my own interest in virtual and augmented realities, that other females were more interested in just this new platform because it was a lot more accessible and a lot more visual and created presence. So what I found out in my middle school classes, I was teaching at a school called Gale Ranch Middle School. I took data for the last 3 years of technology courses offered, and I noticed this discrepancy even within our school. So 73% of the classes were comprised of males, and only 26% were comprised of females. And in some places, 26% is actually quite high. There's a lot of rural areas where this percentage of females is much lower. For example, 15% or lower, but we are definitely in California near Silicon Valley, so we probably already have a greater interest. So my research question was, how, if any, does using innovative technology, specifically virtual reality, affect middle school girls' attitudes towards pursuing a career in technology? And the results that I found was very delightfully surprising and really helped further this cause. So what I had done, to tell you a little bit about the experiment, is I created a writing lesson, and I went to the App Store and found multiple, it was Google Cardboard at the time because that was the only accessible technology for us. So I had students download apps, for example, with different environments, like a Jurassic Park app. I had students download a deep sea application, a sites where they can go to different sites in the world application. So every application has a different environment. And then I connected it to a writing lesson. So I had a control group of students who did the writing lesson without virtual reality. And then I had another group of students do the writing lesson while also experiencing those virtual environments. And what I noticed, first of all, for the interest level, is that you can see in this chart, the males sort of had a steady interest in technology, even after using virtual reality, because I think that they already had a high level of interest. However, what's more interesting is that after using virtual reality, my females represented with this blue line, in fact, increased, and it was a statistically significant increase in their interest in virtual reality, but also pursuing careers in VR, which is really amazing. And then when it comes to writing, what I noticed was that VR had increased the engagement of the students who used it for their writing, and it increased the level of adjectives. So a lot of students used a lot more adjectives because they could literally see the colors and the sites, whereas the ones who didn't had a decreased amount of adjectives and less description in their writing as well. So let me bring it to the present day. This was back in 2016, and I wanted to know, where do I stand now? Because I'm still teaching technology courses. And I had the data also in 2018 of enrollment in my courses, and I compared that to this year. And I had a delightful surprise, which I noticed that over the last 2 to 3 years, it was a 10% increase in students whose enrollment went up by 10% in the technology courses. So this further proves why maybe specifically females were more interested in technology, but specifically VR, and how maybe VR is a great equalizer of genders. And this is definitely good news for gender representation within STEM subjects and the tech industry as a whole. So that was really great to find out. So this kind of poses the question, why specifically XR would have this effect on females or anyone in general, to be honest. When I dug a little bit deeper, I noticed that over a 2-year span, that there was a 30% increase in use of VR. So I believe if I even did this survey today, it would have even gone up higher. Because I know in 2016, when I asked my students how many people had used VR, almost 0 hands went up in the room. And today, when I asked earlier in this talk, I said, how many people have experienced VR? Almost everyone in the room definitely had. Granted, we are in a technology conference, so I'm sure that number would be higher, but that shows you that this is on the rise. The other interesting thing I noticed is that 87% of my students think VR should be used for learning and teaching. So they're already interested in using this technology. So that's why I think XR is a viable tool. The other reason is that it creates presence, and it's a great empathy tool because you can literally be in someone else's shoes, experiencing and seeing the things they see, and it can elicit behavior change. And it's definitely equitable for all the genders because when you're in VR, you can be an avatar, you can be non-gender, it really doesn't matter. You can be represented however you want to be represented. When it comes to empathy, an example I want to give is a friend of mine started a company called Embodied Labs. And what they do is that her mother had macular degeneration, which means she started losing her vision. And so what she did was she created a virtual reality application that simulates macular degeneration so that the caregivers for people who have these types of illnesses can empathize with their patients. And it really did wonders for the geriatric care, especially because that's on the decline. So that was one specific social good use that she used for, and that has a great potential for this kind of technology. So I want to talk about how you can actually take action, and a lot of you in the room can start to use this in your own lives. One way that I connected this to my classroom is by introducing problem-based learning. Problem-based learning is basically different than project-based learning because it teaches a method in which complex real-world problems are used as a vehicle to promote student learning and concepts and principles as opposed to direct representation of facts. Normally with project-based learning, everyone tries to solve the same problem, right? However, in problem-based learning, students connect with things that they're passionate about or that might be personal things to them, and then they try to work on solutions for that through technology. I'm going to share a small video clip about what problem-based learning is. So let me go ahead and share that with you.
Problem-based learning in less than 5 minutes, I promise. In the 1980s, somebody decided that haircuts were way too messy. So they combined the hair trimmer and the vacuum cleaner, and we ended up with the Flowbee. And I remember begging my parents for a Flowbee, and they said no, because they thought I would use it on the dog, and they were probably right. But the idea there is pretty clear, that you can solve problems in unique ways. And that's the core idea of problem-based learning. Number one, the need for problem-based learning. School exists in a one-size-fits-all factory model where students are expected to passively consume content. But here's the thing, kids aren't widgets, and one-size-fits-all is great for socks but lousy for minds. Kids need to dream and wonder and imagine. They need to design and build and tinker, and they need to think critically and solve complex problems. For years, the model has involved going to school, being compliant, getting into college, and then climbing the corporate ladder. But the ladder is now a maze, and our students need to know how to navigate the complexity of a global society. In other words, students need to be empowered to solve real-world problems. And that's why we have problem-based learning. Number 2, the history of problem-based learning. Problem-based learning began at Case Western University in the 1950s, although it wasn't called that at the time. And the goal was to provide real-world problems for medical students to solve. It soon spread to other medical schools and eventually made its way into business, law, engineering, and education. And by the 1960s, you could find elements of problem-based learning within the new social studies framework of Macialis and Cox, as well as Herbert Thielen's group investigation model. Problem-based learning fits well within the social family of education because of the emphasis on real-world problems and human systems. It's not surprising that many of the problem-based learning theorists cite John Dewey's notion of democratic education, as well as Paulo Freire's concept of critical pedagogy. In other words, kids need to be engaged with solving problems within their world. And here's the description of problem-based learning. There are 4 different phases. Number 1, you present or identify the problem. In some cases, the teacher decides on the problem. In other cases, individual students or the entire classroom community presents the initial problem. Phase number 2, they develop a plan for solving the problem. Here, students work collaboratively in this phase where they figure out what they will do in order to solve the problem. In some cases, it's a really small plan of action, but sometimes they might engage in research, brainstorming, and ideation. And in a few cases, they might even decide to build a product. The next phase is the implementation of the plan. In this phase, students test out their plan to see if they can solve the problem. And then finally, they move to the last phase where they evaluate the implementation. Here, students analyze the results and they also reflect on the process. Now, here's the ideal context for problem-based learning. Problem-based learning works best when students solve authentic real-world problems. Math teacher Dan Meyer warns against solving problems that contain pseudo-context, where students solve problems that don't actually reflect the way the world exists. So it's important that the problems feel real to the students. In social studies, students might broker peace in a war simulation. In math, they might determine the most efficient route for a trip. In language arts, they might figure out if a novel should be adapted into a movie. And in science, they might do a science fair project. But the key idea here is that it is not project-based learning, it's problem-based. And that's because you don't have to design a product. You're simply solving a problem. Ideally, students will solve problems that actually exist in their own world. And here's where the technology comes in. Our devices have a slew of apps that once required additional time and resources. And the problem-based learning provides a model that taps into both the connective and creative capacity of technology so that students can access the tools and the information to solve these real-world problems. So that is basically problem-based learning in less than 5 minutes.
Okay, so he definitely discussed at length what problem-based learning is, but he also gave examples in the video of how you can apply it to different subject matters, such as science, math, and also the fact that it has to be authentic. So one way that I started implementing problem-based learning with my students is by entering the Samsung Solve for Tomorrow national contest every year. I took a small group of students, and it was an excellent way to find a local problem they cared about and apply a STEM solution to it. Our first year doing this was 3 years ago, and we developed a virtual reality stress reduction application because students at my school decided that they were really stressed out And they did extensive research and found out that everyone was stressed out. So we decided to tackle that problem. This app would collect a baseline that let students choose relaxing environments with calming music to go experience. So for example, it collected a baseline of how you started feeling when you used the app. And then it would take you to the beach or to a relaxing forest environment. And then you would take data, it would collect data on how you felt after the experience, and inevitably reducing your stress after going through those experiences. That year, we were state champions, which was a really great win for us. However, our greatest victory came when we won in 2020, and we took the challenge of wildfires that were ravaging California and unfortunately still are ravaging California. So you can see in this, this like a little collage of pictures, because of our winning solution, we were awarded $100,000 for Doherty Valley High School, which led us to collecting that technology and building an XR lab, which we're using today. And so I want to actually let them, I'll share a 3-minute video from our solution on solving wildfires with the group, so you can see exactly what they did.
Just last year, 6,200 fires ravaged the Pacific coast, resulting in nearly 1 million acres in damage, 23,000 buildings destroyed, and 100 civilians and 6 firefighters killed. And that's just in California alone.
I remember last year around the November 16 time period where the Paradise Fires had took a strong impact on my community. They had put so much smoke into our local atmosphere that it became very cloudy and was very difficult to breathe for members of our community.
After speaking to the fire department, we were informed of multiple reasons why a fire would occur. They also answered back with a bunch of questions, such as, how many sensors would you be able to deploy to cast a net large enough to see all the uninhabited areas of the state?
Current devices are extremely expensive and unreliable. They also use lots of power and don't have Wi-Fi capabilities. Also, to reach uninhabited areas, we plan to have one network that spans a large distance with multiple sensors in order to have a wide range of data and values.
In the forest, we will not have easy access to power or internet. Thus, our solution consists of features such as running on one battery for 5 years and transmitting over several kilometers, and found LoRa to be the best option due to its low power consumption and high transmission distance. Our solution currently consists of 5 components: the node, which collects and transmits the data, the gateway, which receives the data and then forwards the data to TTN, or the Things Network. This is an application server that sends the data to Cayenne, and Cayenne is a web application that will allow us to view the data and alert the firefighters of the presence of a wildfire using text.
In order to test our device, we need to take proper safety measurements, especially because we're using an open flame.
Our computer screen was just updated and is showing the updated value. As you can see, our temperature value increased to 25 degrees Celsius and our humidity to 22%. I have just received a text message notifying me of the location of the fire, the current temperature, wind speed, and the nearest city to the node.
In order to protect our device, we decided to 3D print a case using ASA filament, which is incredibly durable in outdoor environments.
The development didn't stop there. We presented our idea at the Climate Action Summit, where we received suggestions from various tech and climate specialists regarding using AI to make models based on our data, finding more suitable and stronger materials for the outer casing, as well as finding a primary market for our product.
By preventing these fires, we'd be able to save billions of dollars lost in infrastructure. We would be able to save the many lives that are lost to both animals and plants following these events. And lastly, we'd be able to drastically reduce the carbon emissions that occur after these tragic wildfires.
Just last year,
Okay, let me just get the present this again. 1 second. Sorry about that. I'm going to reshare my screen. 1 second. Sorry about the delay. Okay, so with this fire prevention device, it gave my students an opportunity to collaborate, follow their passions, make a difference in their community, learn from each other when times are hard, not to give up, be a teacher and a student simultaneously, learn the technical skills they need to solve that specific problem, and also real world job training, as well as develop critical thinking, and of course, gain satisfaction from their project. So how can you get started in your local communities? And you're probably, a lot of you in the room, doing these things already. One way is, of course, to sign up for a hackathon. That's probably why we're all here today, because we want to solve problems that are inspiring to us specifically. Identifying those community problems, especially if you care about them or you have some kind of personal connection, it makes it a lot more meaningful and gives you motivation to continue. And of course, finding a team who also cares about it and is like-minded so that you can share that experience. And we discussed possible topics, but education, people with disabilities, racism, medical or social work. These are just a few topics, but of course, there's many, many more, such as drought, water conservation, and so on. So these are just a few photos from hackathons that we produced with Microsoft Reactor, and students learned to build on VR in those specific hackathons. And it was a good opportunity for us to build community. This photo to the left is 2017, and you can see by 2018, our community had grown because it was a topic that everybody was interested in learning more about. And of course, offering great prizes, which is always a good incentive. And finally, this path, because we won the $100,000 through Samsung Solve, myself and students designed an XR lab at our school with class set of VR ready computers with Oculus Quest 2 headsets, big screens so we can display our work. And to help with this, some of my students and I also created a think tank where we designed and built a course that I'm teaching this year called XR for Social Good. This course examines problems and tries to use XR technology specifically to build those solutions. So again, similar to Samsung Solve, using problem-based learning and also design thinking, we produced personal projects at the end of the year with many different development skills through Unity, and we pitch our solutions to industry experts. We also offer a Unity, official Unity certification, which is a skill that students can directly take to their jobs with them or to colleges that they want to develop that topic with. So here you can see these are just a few photos from our lab and students presenting their work to each other. And this is Sarah, who is also in the room today. You can wave to everybody. And Jake is here as well. He can wave to everybody. So those are my two student presenters who will be sharing with you very shortly about some projects that they've been doing in my class this year. So I'm going to, without further ado, invite my first speaker, Jake, to go ahead and introduce himself and the project that he's been working on. So I'll hand it over to you, Jake.
Yeah, thank you. So, hi, I'm Jake Steinmetz, a high school senior and one of Miss T's students in her new XR for Social Good class. And I'm interested in computer science and VR development. So the driving sim was one of the first projects we did in XR for Social Good using the design thinking process, where in small groups, we identified that learning to drive is difficult and somewhat dangerous. So we wanted to create a risk-free VR environment for new drivers to learn. And this presentation was basically the concept for a project that we might later develop down the road in this class. what is the driving sim? So as I said on the previous slide, the driving sim is a VR driving simulation created for new drivers to develop their skills in a risk-free environment. So we would want to include different levels, each focus on a topic like changing lanes or parking. Then we would also include common obstacles like pedestrians and other vehicles around you. What technology do we need to support this? So first of all, we need an Oculus headset. So that's like the VR component. And then we also need a real world brake and gas pedal. So the user can differentiate going at various speed limits like 5 or 75 miles per hour. And lastly, we need a car chair to mimic being in the driver's seats inside the simulator. So as many of you may know, driving in the real world is not just going in a straight line on perfectly paved flat roads. So we hope to mimic the real world with multiple terrains, winding roads, as well as having AI cars and pedestrians with built-in Unity systems like NavMesh, pathfinding, which we were learning about this previous week. And then in order to accomplish this, we will have two modes, a quiz mode and driving mode. So the quiz mode will allow users to learn new concepts, and the driving mode, as well as the name suggests, will allow you to practice. So the quiz mode. So each lesson will require you to watch through a video, take a quiz, and then go through the motions correctly. And then after doing so, you can move on to the next level. So this could be learning how to start a car or learning how to check your blind spot. Next slide, please. The driving modes. So the driving modes is a place where users can hone their skills to get the practice they need to be successful in a real world environment. So they practice driving in various types of vehicles like electric cars and trucks, environments that are snowy or urban, and various time settings like day or night. And then we would also want to implement settings in the game that allow you to control how crazy the drivers are around you. So that goes into like the AI component. And then here's the mock-up made by Sarah of what the quiz mode might look like.
If you want to turn at an intersection, or even change lanes, you need to use a turn signal. This is what happens if you don't use a turn signal at an intersection. Flip the turn signal up to indicate you're turning right, and flip it down to indicate you're turning left.
Awesome. Thank you, Jake. So that was the end of Jake's presentation. We really appreciate you sharing that. And at the end of our talk, we'll definitely take Q&A for all three of us. So I now want to introduce you to Sarah Tan, who's going to talk about her project called Trash It. So I'll give it over to Sarah.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Sarah Tan, and I'm a junior at Doherty Valley High. And I took extra ADU to expand my knowledge of video game design, especially in the VR aspect, and I would like to pursue this in the future. So after doing the project that Jake shared, we started learning how to use Unity and working with actual 3D games. But this time we applied a PBL learning to an issue that we have a connection with personally. Next slide, please. So for me, in my case, I didn't really learn how to sort trash between recyclables, trash, and compost as a kid. And this actually happens to over 60% of Americans. And the main issue is that the parents don't really understand how much of an impact it could have on the environment if you didn't sort your waste correctly. For example, a perfectly good pile of compost that could be reused for a garden could be incorrectly sorted into the trash and then added to a landfill, which only adds to the methane gas that gets that gets put into the environment and then just hurts it even further. Next slide, please. So my game uses arrow keys to push waste into a recycled, trash, or compost slot because it's geared towards 5 to 10-year-olds, and we want to make a simple game that can leave a lasting impression on them. And doing this can help them reduce unnecessary waste, because if they learn about these things at an early age, then it can cause less harm to the environment in the future. Next slide. So these are the early sketches I made of my project. So as you can see, there's a 2D sketch, then how it first looked in Unity itself, and then the different models I used to represent the different types of waste that you'd be sorting. Next slide. So then after 1 week of working with our project, we had to present our first iteration to our class. And you can see how it's really simple and it's a really rough draft, but it gets the point across of what you want your game to look like and what functions you want to do. For example, if you got it in the wrong slot, then it would make you restart the game and you'd have to keep going until you got all of them in the correct slot. So then you can see here that once you push it into a slot, it disappears, and the game would track if the objects disappeared, and if they're all gone, then it shows a you win screen. Next slide, please. So after the first iteration, we use a design thinking process to improve even further upon our project, and then also think about what we'd like to add further in the future. So taking in advice from our fellow classmates, what I wanted to add was textures on the walls because it was a really plain environment. And I also made the character more visually appealing instead of just a simple cube, as you can see in the bottom there. And I also added more objects that you need to sort because obviously it would get harder as the levels go on. And then also a restart button in case the character falls over or if it falls off the screen. And next steps I would like to add are more levels, obviously to make it more difficult, and a next level button once you finish one level. Then have a main menu screen and possibly have different characters that you can choose from, and also make the environment more colorful. So then this is the updated version that we worked on, and you can see that it's much brighter and it's like a little bit more visually appealing, and there are also more models, and you see the symbols on there. In the first iteration, it was just simple words, but then I was told by my classmates that if you make it so that they're labeled by a picture of a logo instead of just a word, then it would click more with the kids when they play the game of where certain waste goes. And you can see here, once you push it all in, then you have that same you win screen. And that's how I've been able to develop a game so far in this class.
Thank you, Sarah. So that I believe we are actually out of time. I wanted to take everybody through an A-frame web-based VR activity. However, I'm very happy to go ahead and share the slide deck with everyone or share the activity separately, and then you can try that at home. But basically, to kind of conclude the talk, A-frame web-based VR is a very accessible first start for people who are just getting into VR because you don't need to have a VR headset. You can just develop on the web, and eventually you can push it out to VR, or you can even use it on your phone directly, instantly, whatever you created, and you can put it into a Google Cardboard. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and share that with you guys, but thank you so much for listening and your time. If you'd like to contact us, you can check out our website at xredutech or xredutech@gmail.com, or follow us on social at xredutech. And I'd like to say thanks. And if there's any questions for myself, Jake, or Sarah, we'd be happy to answer them in the next.
I want to thank Azine. Thank you so much for coming here today to give your speech. I think we all learned something new about XR and how we can use it. And also, thank you so much for sharing the Samsung Software Tomorrow competition that you did. I think we're all feeling inspired to go out and solve our own problems as well. And I also want to give a big thanks to Jake and Sarah as well for taking time out of your day to present your project. So thank you guys. Thank you all so much for coming today.